And, once again, no, presidents do not go on out there and they do not, as last I checked, Patrick, one last thing here before you go. Do the presidents control the price of eggs in this country?
They do not.
Is not in the Constitution? You're like the fourth or fifth. I mean, I don't know what all the amendments are, but I mean, fourth or fifth, nothing about eggs.
Yeah, I was looking at, some of the more recent ones. I don't know, we're up to 28, 29, 30th, maybe the 30th Amendment. The president shall set the price of eggs based on his volition every morning with his morning coffee and omelet.
There you go. It's a daily setup. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it. No, I think the president doesn't adjust the price of eggs, but it didn't stop you idiots from saying this was my main justification for Joe Biden got egg prices out of control, and now it's even worse. And you're like, I have no idea where you guys got the impression the president is responsible for the price of eggs. Waffle House has been feeling its pain. Now, I'll say this. I mean, like I said, it's nothing I like better than having eggs cooked by someone who's smoking over them. Yum. Yum. Menthol, you say?
When they said smoked meat, they didn't specify the type of smoke.
Those are Newports. Hey, it's an exotic night. We got Lucky Strikes working the grill. Oh, yum. Okay, so you go to a Waffle House, you can have that incident happen, but the soaring price of eggs has cost Waffle House to basically add a temporary surcharge to customers' rights. Now, I am about to say you a number, and if you were saying to yourself, okay, yeah, all right, I get it, a dozen eggs, 5 cents an extra an egg, so you get 2 eggs, you get 10 cents extra. Nope. The Georgia-based change is adding a 50-cent per egg charge because of the nationwide rise in eggs cost, according to signs posted at this restaurant. An aggressive strain of avian flu is hurting supply and causing prices to soar with no relief in sight. Funny how the national news media, funny how now that Donald Trump is in office, funny how all of a sudden, hey, did you know the avian flu is going on? That's why the price of eggs are so high. Funny how since the election, they've suddenly discovered their narrative was a lie. Oh, national news media, you suck. The continuing egg shortage caused by bird flu has caused a dramatic increase in egg prices, Waffle House said in the statement to CNN. Customers and restaurants are being forced to make difficult decisions. Waffle House, which is about 2,100 locations, added to the statement that it's continuously monitoring egg prices, will adjust or remove the surcharge as market conditions allow. Let me ask you something. If people keep buying the eggs at 50 cents per surcharge, you think they're going to really get rid of the surcharge, or are they just going to adjust the prices on the menu? Exactly. Waffle House serves 272 million eggs per year, making it the chain's most ordered item, surpassing hash browns and even waffles, according to its website. Okay, wait a second here. Let me just say how much money this is going to be. I'm going to have to put the scientific calculator into motion here. All right, so they sell how many? 272 million eggs a year. 272, 123, and times 0.5. That's going to be per egg. They should be making an additional $136 million just on the egg surcharge alone. I think they're covering the cost of the eggs. I mean, I don't mean to go out there, but unless it's one of those Fabergé eggs like James Bond was chasing in one of his movies. No, I don't think. I think you're going to cover your costs there. The egg price increase is especially hard for breakfast-focused restaurants to manage. The National Restaurant Association said in a statement, adding the prices have risen nearly 40% in the past year. Joe Biden. Well, now it's Trump. It's bird flu. What are we supposed to do? Like I said, think about how the national news media helped drive the lie on egg prices for up until the election, and now suddenly, the same guy who basically insisted on day one egg prices will plummet, they basically are going out of their way. Let me explain why Donald Trump, even though he kept insisting he was going to do this, really didn't have a choice here. This is not he's a simple little child. Avian flu has been plaguing farmers and the egg supply since January 2022, resulting in 180 million birds since then, 75 million of those who lay eggs being slaughtered, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation. Funny, like I said, this context and stuff, God forbid you would have actually, I don't know, had it last year. I mean, you just said it yourself. It's avian flu has been bad since January 2022. You could have, I don't know, mentioned this at all during the campaign last year, but you guys kept going with the Joe Biden has failed us as egg prices. Yeah. However, the outbreak has gotten worse since 2024. Resurgence of the virus, roughly 17 million egg-laying hens were killed in November and December, which is nearly half the birds killed by the virus in 2024. The average price of a dozen grade A eggs, which Waffle House uses, was $4.15 in December, up from $3.65 in November, according to the Bureau of Statistics. Let's see. Let me think about this a second. A dozen eggs was $4.15 in December. That's higher than $3.65 in November. So, yeah, it's like your whole narrative is completely gone. By the way, the cost of eggs only gets worse in the past year. The price is forecast to increase 20%. But once again, I want to make sure there's 12 eggs in a dozen. They're charging 50 cents per egg. That's $6 on top of, that's $6 per dozen on top of the eggs, the money you're already paying for the eggs. And the dozen eggs is only $4.15. Yeah, this is a money-making thing. Waffle House is hiding behind avian flu to make some money on this. It's got to be. The math doesn't add up. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but we're in this for a while, said Emily Mertz, president and CEO of the American Egg Board. Until we have time without a detection, unfortunately, this very, very tight egg supply is going to continue. Like I said, Donald Trump promised every freaking rally. Day one, egg prices will be rock bottom. Wasn't like avian flu wasn't a problem last year. It was. And he insisted still with avian flu, egg prices would be down. And the national news media ran with that and kept wagging their finger in Joe Biden's face saying, why isn't Joe Biden getting egg prices down? Now that we're here, they can't stumble over themselves enough to make excuses for the big orange. 952-946-6205. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Do you have a vehicle you no longer need? Are you a little cash strapped? Rudy Luther Toyota will pay you for your used vehicle. It's really simple. Head to rudyluthertoyota.com, answer a few simple questions, and Rudy Luther Toyota will get you an instant offer. Then they will set up an appointment, and after a quick verification, they will handle all the paperwork and coordinate getting you your check. It's that simple. It's a fast way for you to get rid of the vehicle you no longer need, putting money in your hands. For more information, head to rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com.
Hi, I'm Mary T, inviting you to experience our integrative Mary T Health and Wellness Center, offering physical, occupational, speech, and lymphedema therapies. Experience our guided imagery, meditation, Tibetan medicine, dry needling, massage services, including cupping and oncology massage. Sign up for our free wellness screenings and learn more at marytwellness.com. All major health insurance providers are accepted. Come for therapy. Experience wellness.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. The Tech Mobility Show is Minnesota's program for news, information, and perspective at the intersection of mobility and technology. I'm Ken Chester, your host. I delve into the current mobility and technology trends and topics that impact you. Things are changing fast, and I cover these topics in a way that's easy to understand. By tuning into the Tech Mobility Show, you can stay informed about the latest happenings with self-driving vehicles, electric airplanes, and more. That's the Tech Mobility Show, heard every Saturday from 9 to 10 p.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way a fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
It's the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you with us today. 952-946-6205. The Super Bowl is, of course, this weekend. I don't know about you, but I've got to have two things on my Super Bowl table. I'm going to be having that ungodly bad for you Velveeta dip. I know, but sweet God, until you create something better than that, I don't know. Velveeta, a little Rotel, diced tomato, maybe a little chilies in there. Microwave it, stir it, microwave it again, boom, grab the Tostitos. I'm going to go get fat. And that is just the tell me it's not. Oh my God, I love that. I do love that. It is delicious. The other thing I make, Reubens. Oh man, I love a good Reuben, homemade Reuben. Toughest part is you got to make sure you got to get all the juice out of the sauerkraut. But pumpernickel, Thousand Island dressing, some good corned beef, little Swiss cheese, a little bit of that sauerkraut. Yumbo. Open face those suckers, put them in the stove, get them nice and melty. Yum. So that's basically me. That's going to be my Sunday evening. You're welcome. And it's like I said, it's just simplistic and easy. I saw a story today about the fact that why are the Kansas City Chiefs the villain? I don't know. Maybe it would be because most of the Kansas City Chief fans, including Mahomes' wife, all are big Trump guys, and Trump is absolutely freaking horrible. I tell the story about in the Twin Cities here that for many years, the Vikings could not get a stadium because Red McCombs was the owner. And he basically did not have the Minnesota Vikings. He had the Minnesota Republican Party Vikings. And they did everything in their part to help out the Republicans in the state, and did fundraisers with them and all sorts of things. It was really biased. So it was not a big surprise to me when it came time to fund some new stadiums. The Minnesota Twins got a stadium. The University of Minnesota Golden Gophers got a new football stadium. But guess who was left out of that little list? Exactly. The Vikings were left off of that, and they basically ended up having to change. They got the Ziggy Wilfs. The Wilfs own the Vikings now, and they got their, the big Jawa sand crawler that's on the east side of the downtown. That's their football stadium now. You get your politics involved, and you have a tendency of basically, getting rid of the honey and getting the vinegar out. Let's put it that way. And regardless, and I would say this, if you were to go out there and I'm a football player and I'm a big lefty, guess they get very angry with you as well. The right does as well. How dare he kneel? It's that sort of thing. How dare you disrespect the flag? As pretty much every conservative has got a pair of shorts with the flag over their ever widening caboose. Speaking of Velveeta cheese dip, my goodness. But that would be one of the reasons why I think the people are, I think they're tired of the Chiefs winning. And as well, I think that the Chiefs basically being firmly in the camp of mega tells you that, and once again, only 29% of the voting age public in this country and only 23% of the voters of the people of this country overall voted for Donald Trump, which means the vast majority did not vote for him. And considering the last 2 weeks, I know a lot of Republicans are like, oh God, what did I do? But I don't care. You still own this. You are all idiots. You voted for him. He said he was going to do everything he said he was going to do. And there you go. So I think it's there. Now, Trump himself has decided he's going to go to New Orleans to be there for the Super Bowl. Great. And what I'm about to read to you is a stunning level of cowardice by the NFL. The NFL is reportedly removing the End Racism logo from the Super Bowl end zones as the White House announced that Trump will be attending the event on Sunday. Wow. For a sports league that has basically been carried by black athletes for the last 50 years. Carried by the black athlete. You guys all of a sudden saying, racism over. No more racism is a stunningly tone-deaf stance by the NFL. And once again, you did not have to do this. You could have left the end racism in the... No one would have known. But now you're going out of your way to do this. Now, of course, the NFL is, well, wait a second here. That's not fair, Matt. The NFL told The Athletic that the end racism would not appear at the end zone for the first time since 2021. Instead, they're going to with choose love. And it takes all of us would be seen instead. For the races who have experienced racism, I'm sure choose love is just a half-ass attempt at covering your own ass, NFL. It takes all of us, to cave to freaking Trump. Come on. End racism. How in the hell is that a controversial statement? Oh, that's right. The Nazis, the cosplaying Nazis that are surrounding Trump in his... I see. For them, why don't you just put Aryan pride in the end zones? Why don't you just do that? You want to make sure that Trump is happy. Get rid of end racism. Put white power in the end zone. Why don't you do that, NFL? God. Oh God. How? We got into diversity efforts because we felt it was the right thing for the National Football League. Once again, a league based that was been carried by the black athlete for the last 50 years, said NFL commissioner and white guy, Roger Goodell. And we're going to continue those efforts because we've not only convinced ourselves, we've proven to ourselves it does make the NFL better. Let's just not talk about racism, though. Your league was a victim of Southern racism and racism in college sports for 100 years when schools and colleges refused to allow black athletes. Even when the schools allowed black athletes into the programs, they couldn't be the star quarterback. It wasn't until really the late 70s, early 80s, you started seeing more and more black quarterbacks because they were just better than the other quarterbacks. And you finally said, well, maybe we should start allowing this. And there you go. It's not ancient history, for God's sakes. On Tuesday, White House officials confirmed Trump would attend the big game. He'll be his first sitting U.S. president to do it. He will be the first sitting U.S. president to do so. House Speaker Mike Johnson will also be expected to be the guest list. My guess is also going to be that to drown out the boos for Trump, they are going to pump through cheers. I'm going to bet you any amount of money the NFL has already got a deal with Trump that if when he gets announced that they are going to pump cheering through the speakers to try to drown out the boos. That because he's been to sporting events before and it hasn't gone too well for him. Unbelievable. How in the hell is end racism a controversial... God, dear Lord. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
It's Brad Friedman, your friendly investigative blogger, journalist, and host of the Bradcast on AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hey, it's Patrick. February is the month for love, so when was the last time you gave your carpet the love and attention it deserves? Have you gotten down on your hands and knees and adored how clean and refreshed it was, or are you scared of what you might see or smell? Not only is your carpet one of the biggest investments in your home, but it's also the biggest air filter in your home. If your carpet hasn't been professionally cleaned, you are breathing unhealthy levels of nasty dirt, dander, bacteria, and germs that keep recirculating again and again and again. But lucky for you, my friends at Zero Res are going to spread the love to you and your home with their Love Your Rug special. Get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting for just $119 and get a 4th room free. But don't forget dirt and dander's favorite hiding place either, your air ducts. This month, take $75 off any air duct cleaning. Call Zero Res right now, 952-ZERO-RES, or go online to ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the AM 950 special. Back order forward, it smells the same. Zero Res.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the DataBank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the DataBank to create progressive change. Today, the DataBank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the DataBank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The DataBank, a quarter-century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Deb. I thought you were the radon test guys.
The who test guys?
Didn't you see the papers Sunday? The Surgeon General issued another lung cancer warning.
Oh, like the cigarette warning?
Yeah. They're saying we have to get our houses tested for radon.
I don't smell any radon in my house.
That's because radon is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that seeps into your house from underground.
Does this story have a happy ending?
Yeah. You'll be a lot happier once you get your house tested.
Learn more. Visit the EPA at epa.gov/radon. That's epa.gov/radon.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our live call-in talk show airing every Saturday from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights you need to know to live and age well. Each week, we talk with guests who provide answers to important questions regarding healthcare, elder care, end-of-life care, and self-care for caregivers, and help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 12, tonight cloudy with a low around 9, and Wednesday light snow with a high near 27. For bold Szechuan and Mandarin dishes, try the Great Wall Restaurant. From sesame chicken to Peking duck, there's something for everyone that enjoys Chinese cuisine. Visit 4515 France Avenue South or call 952-927-4439 for takeout and explore their full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Suddenly I find I got darkness on my mind. It's a question mark.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. In the nighttime hours, 11:50 a.m. KKNW in Seattle, and of course in Minneapolis, St. Paul on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show, 952-946-6205. So I want to remind you of a few things before I get into the next story. I want to remind you that every Republican went crazy in 2016 because Hillary Clinton had some work email come through a personal server. Wasn't any, destroy all the evidence. It was just some personal email had routed through her personal server, and it proceeded to become a monster scandal that she was compromised. How dare these are emails that should never have gone anywhere but within government entities. Remember that? I remember that. The New York Times ran multiple front page stories about the grave national security risk of Hillary Clinton's server. That was back in 2016. That Hillary Clinton was unfit because it just so happened a handful of her emails had gone through a server at her house, a personal server. And once again, full investigations, I think like 7 investigations into that. No wrongdoing was ever found But still, the Republicans were outraged. The national news media was outraged because a handful of emails went through a personal server. The Republicans are still demanding investigations into Hunter Biden, and they say that because what their theory is, and once again, all of this is based on a guy who has been admitted was made up. The guy that supposedly was the source on all this, he didn't really exist. But that hasn't stopped the Republicans, who insist that Hunter Biden used leverage as the son of the president to get favorable deals from Burisma and Ukraine and all these things, even though they have had multiple investigations and have found nothing outside of, well, I mean, there was the gun charge that he had, then the taxes charge he had. But yeah, as far as the Burisma thing, because, and the reason why they went crazy was, how dare we have somebody who is compromised that close to the president? He has his own agenda. That's not Joe Biden's agenda. And Hunter Biden was never elected or appointed to anything. Yeah, you get the point. On top of that, I want to remind you of the Republican Party for the last 30 years, who have repeatedly said over and over and over and over again how they are tired of the government taking people's personal information. This is the gravest violation of individual rights. How dare the government take personal information? Databases are evil. Spreadsheets are evil. Computer servers are evil. That people should not have their personal information jeopardized. Remember all three of those? Yeah. I don't think you people are starting to understand how truly cataclysmic what Elon Musk has done in the last week and a half really is. And he's doing it very quickly because he knows if he takes any time to do this in a more relaxed environment, that it would probably be stopped. But my gut feeling is what's done is done, and we will never walk this back. I mentioned this yesterday. You remember in Arizona when they wanted to have the recount because they convinced themselves that even though Joe Biden won Arizona fair and square, a bunch of dim bulb moron idiots were out there saying, China they sent over bamboo ballots. So they bring in cyber ninjas. And what cyber ninjas first did, the first thing they did was download every bit of voter data information from the state of Arizona and then took it back to Montana where they were based. And it was gone. And you know why? Because information is insanely valuable. And the more information you have about an individual, the more value you have with that information. Cyber ninjas were not down there to try to find this. As a matter of fact, their own report said Joe Biden won Arizona by a wider margin. What they were down there for was they were welcomed in and they got the golden egg. They got the voter data from Arizona. Right now, we know that Elon Musk, who is not elected and was not gone through any congressional approval process, and more than likely couldn't get a security clearance to save his caboose, but Donald Trump issued him one anyway. Hunter Biden, remember that? And a guy, by the way, who is wildly compromised as far as relations with other people that the federal government does not want, would not want anywhere near our government agencies. Hunter Biden. He has had unfettered access to the databases at the Social Security, with Medicare, with the IRS, with the Department of Education, with the USAID, as well and the what was it? The Office of there's a lawsuit now against the Office of Personal Management, U.S. Office of Personal Management. So the data for all the government workers. So that gives us now. Let me make sure I got my count correct. Social Security, Medicare, taxes, the Education Department, which includes all your kids' grades, student student loan information, all that stuff. They have that now. Plus, they have basically through the Education Department all the personal information for all the kids in the country. You have as well USAID and now the Office of Personal Management. He has had access and unfettered access to all of these departments. On top of that, there's a little story I mentioned yesterday. Elon Musk henchmen importantly installed a commercial server to control federal databases that can contain the Social Security numbers and other highly sensitive personal information. There have been multiple stories that Elon Musk has taken not government employees, but personal employees, bringing up his own commercial servers from his companies into federal government buildings and downloading all of the information. And once again, there is at least two. I saw another one on the third, but at this point, I think this is clear. This is the modus operandi of Elon Musk, is that he is bringing his personal company in, downloading all the information off the Social Security databases, downloading all the information off the Medicare databases, downloading all the information off the IRS databases, downloading all the information off the Department of Education databases, downloading all the information off the USAID information, and then the Office of Personal Management getting all that data as well. Why? And by the way, once again, Republicans, same exact Republicans in 2016 were livid that a handful of emails went through a personal server of Hillary Clinton's. A handful of emails. And here you have a private citizen basically stealing the data and information for everyone. And for all you Republicans out there, it's not just the liberals. He's getting all your stuff too. And I got a little bit of, I got a tell that tells me he might already have most of the Republican politicians in the bag. He's got this information for one reason and one reason only. Because, and this is what I could not figure out. This is what I was having a hard time rolling around in my head. Why would Elon Musk jeopardize his billion-dollar companies, Tesla and Twitter, for a few $1 billion worth of government contracts? Because there would only be so much that we'd be willing to give him in far as government contracts. And even if we did give him a long-term contract, you could revisit that at a future date. I mean, there's nothing that's an absolute. You can always, as we're seeing, as Donald Trump is trying to cut down and end these programs, you can run it through Congress and you can shut it down. So it would seem like, to me, a war of attrition until I started paying attention to this. Because let's go back to what I said about cyber ninjas. What they got was worth billions. What Elon Musk so far, it sounds like he's got, is worth trillions. He has more than likely a detailed laundry list of personal information, including your financial updates, your Social Security numbers, your health care, all your transactions, all of it. Your taxes, he's got all those. He has enough information where he can build a database and pull up any information about any single American that he wants to. And he can sell it to the highest bidder. Because once again, these aren't government servers he is putting this on. These are private servers. Remember when I was talking about Republicans and being all upset about government overreach? Have you heard one single freaking Republican at all bothered by the fact that what their wildest, demented fantasies of government overreach are nothing compared to what Elon Musk is actually doing? Not only he can use, buy, and sell information now that he can get at best to advertisers, At worst, to nefarious people that want to steal Social Security numbers, want to open up bank accounts, want to steal your money out of banks, they could do all of that. But what this really signifies is a new umbrella over the federal government. Because this guy now has enough leverage over anyone in this country to basically get whatever he wants. Elon Musk can bribe and blackmail any Supreme Court justice, any senator, any congressperson he needs to, any president. I mean, hell, the national news media is basically in his pocket. But if there are some news media outlets that are against him, he can shut them down, bribe and blackmail them. He can go after every single American in this country because he's got the information to do it. All your personal information is now owned by Elon Musk. Today, I'll tell you what, I'll save the part I was going to talk about with what my sign is that indeed this might already be compromised. But I want to just go back to these same Republicans, the same ones who looked at us for 3 years about Hillary Clinton's server emails. What about her emails? That's nothing. That is a speck of sand compared to what Elon Musk just did. And all you freaking idiots are saying nothing. All of you spent 4 years about Hunter Biden and Burisma, a completely made-up story about a guy who you insisted was trouble because he wasn't appointed, he wasn't elected, he basically was just an outside influence who was compromised. And ta-da! It's times a million with Elon Musk, and none of you are saying anything about it. And the same group of people who have been going, jackbooted thugs, jackbooted thugs, jackbooted thugs, are all of a sudden saying, you know what, the jackbooted thugs are pretty good, aren't they? I mean, who doesn't love a jackbooted thug? I love them. Oh, it's fantastic. This, people don't seem to understand what has happened now in this country. I don't think we're ever coming back from, because a man who has nothing to do with our government has all the government's information now. That's freaking terrifying. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
I'm ready for action.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Coming out this Wednesday on The Gailey Show at 2 p.m., the fate of any hope for a liberal comeback is on the line this April in Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Plus, we sit down with the owner and the manager of Rainbow Road in Minneapolis, an LGBTQ-owned business still thriving after 29 years. So join us Wednesday live at 2 p.m. or stream us on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Blue Sky for ticket giveaways, chances to be on the show, and more progressive news and analysis. We're at thegaileyshow.org on Blue Sky.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction again. Does your home feel colder than it should with the furnace constantly running? Or do certain rooms always feel colder than the rest of the house? Those are signs the attic in your home may need an insulation upgrade. Snap Construction can help by providing a free energy audit for your home's insulation. The average cost of getting new insulation can cost much less than a new furnace. Plus, Snap Construction is a BPI certified installer. That means if you use Snap for your next insulation project, you qualify for up to $650 in total rebates from your energy provider. After my free inspection, my insulation upgrade was completed within a few weeks and the rebate check was in the mail. Snap to it and reduce your heating bill this winter with Snap Construction. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP for your free energy audit when you mention AM 950. Snap Construction, arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation company in the metro.
Did you know Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken airs 5 nights a week at 10 p.m.? That's 5 nights of talking about ghosts, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. We're talking about the paranormal every Monday through Friday with some of the most trusted names in the field. Join us and step into the unknown with Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Only if you dare.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. What makes me think that indeed we might be at a point where Elon Musk is already flexing his muscle with all the information that he's got? That very quickly over the last 2 days, that all the Republicans that had a problem with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard suddenly are all now in line and are going to vote for her to be confirmed. And neither one of them is qualified to do the job they're being asked, especially in the case of Tulsi Gabbard. Multiple Republicans were like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but now they're all on board. Here's my theory. They come and look at him and say, we're going to primary. And they said, I'm not too concerned about that. Then they come back and say, well, what we got is we've got some compromising information on you. And they say, no, you don't. I don't care. So, well, then we have compromising information on your kid or your nephew or your grandkid or your brother. Do you want us to leak that information? Well, you better get in line. And if that doesn't work, then they call up their militia buddies to maybe start doing some harassment. And if that doesn't work, then they call in the military just to do it as a military thing, saying, we had to storm that house in Washington State. That sort of thing. We are in a very, very different country as of right now. We are in a very, very different country as of right now. And shame on every freaking Democrat who says, like, come on, guys. They told me I could sit next to them in the lunchroom if we just kind of back them up a little bit. Screw you. Primary them all. If you're working with the Republicans, you need to get primaried because you have lost your focus. When this crap is going on, you're sitting there talking about, they're my buddies. I'm better friends with the Republicans than the Democrats. This is Democrats saying this. Primary them out. Get rid of all of them. They're all worthless. I guarantee you we're about to find a whole bunch of moderate Democrats who are born again progressives. Liars. Primary them all out and get rid of them. Let's get some people in there that are actually going to fight for America, as opposed to sit down and say, well, they told me if I sit down and shut up that they'll be allowed in the room, so I'm going to do that. Ugh. Federal workers have filed an emergency lawsuit demanding the court's mandate that Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency shuts down the server set up at the U.S. Office of Personal Management. Wired reports the attorney representing 2 unidentified government workers is alleging that the server's continued operation not only violates federal law, but is potentially exposing vast quantities of government staffers' personal information to hostile foreign adversaries through an unencrypted email. Hillary Clinton! The complaint alleges that Doge server was installed without OPM, the government's human resources department, conducting a mandatory privacy impact statement required under federal law. The publication notes that such an action would violate the 2002 law mandating all agencies perform privacy assessments. Once again, they're doing all this as quickly as they can because then they got all the information. One day they're all going to say, okay, fine. We won't do it anymore. At that point, they've got everything. Elon Musk, now serving as a special government employee, and his associates of the Department of Government Efficiency reportedly have gained access to government computers in multiple federal agencies. Politico reports that Secretary Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, privately reassured Republican lawmakers on Monday that Elon Musk and his team do not have control over the sensitive government system that manages the flow of trillions of dollars in payments, according to 5 lawmakers in the room of a closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill. Top Senate Democrats have expressed skepticism, and reports from multiple news outlets provide information that supports their concerns. The Times, Hacks, reported that the weekend that the Treasury Secretary gave representatives on the so-called Department of Government Efficiency access to the federal payment system late on Friday, according to 5 people familiar with the change, handing Elon Musk and his team, he is leading a powerful tool to monitor and potentially limit government spending. Politico did not explain that Bessent meant to the word control, but added he had reported Saturday that Bessent signed off on the plan to give read-only access to the payment system to the team led by Tom Krause, the CEO of Cloud Software Group, not a government agency, who is now working for the Treasury Department and serves as a liaison to Musk Group that operates the United States Digital Service. But conflicting reports are adding to some concerns. The Washington Post, Jeff Stein writes, now we have, by the way, different Jeff Stein. Now we have a multiple conflicting reports about the kind of access Doge has received at the Treasury. He says the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, Hacks, have said Doge's Treasury access is read-only, but Wired and also Nathan Tankus, citing conversations with staff, say that's not true, that they crucially have code editing privileges as well. I want to repeat that. There are reports that Elon Musk has code editing privileges for our government computers. Reminder, these are the same Republicans who were upset about Hillary Clinton in an email server. My God. Talking Points memo publisher Josh Marshall on Tuesday morning dropped the bombshell. He alleges a Musk associate has made changes to the Treasury payment system at the code level. Overnight Wire reported that contrary to published reports, the Doge operatives of the Treasury Department are limited to read-only access, and the department payment system. This is not true. Marshall wrote, a 25-year-old Doge operative named Marco Illes, in fact, has administrative privileges on these critical systems, which directly control and pay out roughly 95% of payments made by the U.S. government, including Social Security checks, tax refunds, and virtually all contract payments. I can independently confirm these details based on conversations going back over the weekend. I can further report that Els not only has full access to these systems, he's already made extensive changes to the code base for these critical payment systems, meaning they're paying attention now and they're able to determine when things are getting paid. I am told Els is possibly other Doge operatives received full administrative access on Friday, January 31st. The claim of read-only access was either false from the start or later fell through. The Doge team, which appears to be mainly or only Els for the purpose of this project, has already made extensive changes to the code base on the payment system. Troy responded to Marshall saying, this is insane. Musk himself appears to have served up some fodder for the reports that he has the ability to control payments. On Sunday, he claimed his team is rapidly shutting down all these illegal payments. He pointed to a post by Mike Flynn, Donald Trump's first national security advisor who became a convicted felon. Politico reported that these payments to Lutheran charities provide refugee services. So once again, Republicans stopping payments to the Lutherans. Musk also suggested, without offering evidence, that career Treasury officials were breaking the law by approving some payments and approved payments. They're getting all the information. When the courts finally say you have to stop it, they'll say, okay, fine. But they've already changed the code. They've already stolen all the information. And you 77 freaking million freaking idiots signed off on this. This country is never going to be the same. Chicago, Seattle, talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next. Minnesotans are hardy. We don't let snow or ice get in our way. We have places to go. So making sure your vehicle is in prime shape for winter driving is so important. Take your vehicle to Rudy Luther Toyota for all your service needs. I was just there. I got my oil and filters replaced, and they did a complete safety check to make sure my vehicle can tackle winter. And they service all makes and models of vehicles. Head to RudyLutherToyota.com and use their super easy Toyota service schedule to set up your service appointment today. Rudy Luther Toyota on the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, this is Paul Metza, host of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We have been on the air on AM 950 for 10 years. We feature cool people from all walks of life in all 50 states. We've had musicians, politicians, actors, poets, people with great stories or a tale to tell. Tune in every Saturday night at 6 p.m. on AM 950, and podcasts are available on all streaming services.
Hi, Matt McNeil here. You're listening to the best progressive radio in Minnesota. It's AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
AP News, I'm Mike Hempen. President Trump says he's exploring whether he can send American criminals jailed in the most severe cases to be incarcerated in other countries.
If we had the legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know if we do or not. We're looking at that right now. But we could make deals where we'd get these animals out of our country.
Yesterday, El Salvador offered to take them in, along with migrants in the U.S. illegally, whom Trump is seeking to deport. President Trump and his top advisors say the case for a 3 to 5 year timeline for reconstruction of Gaza, as laid out in the temporary truce agreement, is not viable. Trump is renewing his call to Arab nations to relocate displaced Palestinians. He meets today with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has won a key GOP senator's backing.
As the Senate Finance Committee voted on advancing Kennedy's Health and Human Services nomination to the full chamber.
Mr. Cassidy.
Louisiana's Bill Cassidy, a doctor who has said Kennedy's vaccine skepticism bothers him, voted with all other Republicans.
He will be the secretary.
Cassidy says in exchange for his backing, Kennedy's promised, among other things, not to change existing vaccine recommendations.
I will watch carefully for any effort to wrongfully sow public fear about vaccines.
Democrats like Raphael Warnock say putting Kennedy in charge of America's health is simply wrong.
He's unqualified, and I dare say everybody here knows it.
A full Senate vote will be scheduled, as will another for Tulsi Gabbard, after the Senate Intelligence Committee advanced her nomination to be the nation's intelligence director. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Officials say the remains of all 67 victims of the mid-air collision near Reagan National Airport have been recovered. This is AP News.
This sandwich is not just spicy, it's flavorful. Hi, this is Matayo, and this is Elsa. And a little thing I love about the Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich is that spicy kick, because the spice comes in at just the right moment. Oh, no. A little thing I love is that cilantro lime sauce. It's a fun blend of zesty and bold. That's what really makes me happy. Are you going to eat all your fries?
Order a Chick-fil-A Grilled Spicy Deluxe Sandwich and a Diet Dr. Pepper on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shamblatt. My dad is Dr. Scott Shamblatt from Shamblatt Family Dentistry. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist, but you don't have to be. My dad makes going to the dentist comfortable and even fun. He won't be mad if you haven't seen a dentist in a long time. He just wants to take care of you and your teeth. If you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblatt Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblattfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH. Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the data bank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the data bank to create progressive change. Today, the data bank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the data bank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The Data Bank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
When addiction takes hold, it's easy to feel like no one can help. But you're not in this alone. For 75 years, Hazelden Betty Ford has been at the forefront of addiction and mental health care, evolving treatment, reimagining recovery, and breaking through barriers to help families everywhere find healing. So please reach out at 855-489-2383. Help is here. Sponsored by Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation and aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 12. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 9. And Wednesday, light snow with a high near 27. For bold Szechuan and Mandarin dishes, try the Great Wall Restaurant. From sesame chicken to Peking duck, there's something for everyone that enjoys Chinese cuisine. Visit 4515 France Avenue South or call 952-927-4439 for takeout and explore their full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show here on your Monday, Tuesday. There he is. Matt, Patrick, Brett is in studio with us right now. Hello, Brett. How are we today?
Hey, doing all right. How about you?
Oh, I'm watching the country fall off the edge of the planet. How about the NFL getting rid of end racism in the end zones because Trump is a little upset about that?
Well, that's too controversial, I guess, in 2025.
Well, I mean, if you really want to support Trump, put pro-racism in the back right there.
I mean, how is that offending him? End racism.
I don't know. The NFL is like, we're past it now. The same league that's carried themselves on the backs of African-American athletes for 50 years. And, racism wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, sure. Ask Colin Kaepernick what he thinks about that. Yeah, I don't know. All right. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit, you're going to talk to Cooligan coming up here from the Reformer about this kind of fight that's going on between the Democrats and the Republicans here in the state of Minnesota. But and we of course have this, Ken Martin is headed on off to, I don't know, run the DNC now. I think Ken most of the time was good as opposed to bad. I honestly think he did a better job a lot of times. But there were some times, Angie Craig's last campaign, that I'm like, well, what are you doing, man? What are you allowing to happen here? That all being said, I need Democrats to start acting like the end of the world is here, because if they don't start doing that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to think the only thing that might upend Trump and Elon Musk from taking over this country and running it for the next 50 years is the avian flu pandemic. To where if you get to a point where, as Dr. Joe has said, between 10% and a quarter of the population might get killed off by avian flu, that might actually stop them in their tracks. But outside of that, I don't know what else could stop them at this point, because the Republicans have basically said, the same Republicans who complained about Hillary Clinton's email server are watching Elon Musk basically take over and put his private servers on every government computer and think that's perfectly fine. Ugh.
And it's terrifying that he's having largely kids that are either straight out of high school or straight out of college in charge of the Treasury Department and all of these government agencies.
And once again, not government employees. These are his corporate servers and his corporate employees that have now gotten all this information. Like I said, Hillary Clinton's emails. How many years have we heard Republicans talk about governments trying to take over our databases? I don't quite know what to think, man. Because right now, Elon Musk has the ability to blackmail anyone he wants to in this country. Anyone. Supreme Court justice, any senator, any president, any cabinet official, he can get whatever he wants to, because they basically said, welcome on in. That's terrifying.
It's the richest person in the world. I don't know how more people are not seeing a major problem with that, let alone anyone doing that, but giving that power to the richest man in the world.
I said this online this morning. I said that this country, you could end up having the standard MAGA voter living in a broken down car that they can't afford gas for, starving to death, and having their family members die off of the latest pandemic. And they will swear on their grave that their life is so much better under Donald Trump. Because once again, they didn't vote to make their lives better. They voted just to see other people punished. And as long as they feel as if other people are being punished more than they are, they're going to still love and worship him. That's the scary part, man. That is some scary stuff. We got a lot of cool things that are going on. I know they got the winter snow sculptures over at MIA coming up. Got Lopit this weekend. We're supposed to get a little snow into the metro area. It'll look really nice. Got Super Bowl weekend with the incompetency. That's all that. It's hard, because I just don't see how the government has not just been officially changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks. We've never seen anything like this. You invited, it would be like, imagine back in the day, in the 1780s, 1790s, when we first started the country, and George Washington says, here's my buddy Phil, and he's going to go in the room with all the documents, And where did all the documents go? Oh, Phil's got them. I guess it's his country now. I mean, that would be basically the same thing. He pulled up his horse and cart to the old Library of Congress and dumped all the documents. He's got the Constitution, so it's whatever he says goes. And he started changing. I don't quite understand. I don't. This is terrifying. This is absolutely terrifying that he's doing this. And if you're listening to me right now, if you're a Republican, you're listening to me right now, and you hear this and you say, it's not that bad. I can't help you. I can't. If you ever complain about Hillary Clinton's emails, ever complain about Hunter Biden, you ever complain about anything, this is that times a billion. And you're basically saying, I think it's a good idea. The billionaire that basically has a self-serve, is a God complex, has got control of all of my data.
God complex going through a midlife crisis as well.
He's a Nazi, and hey, if you're not a Nazi, then why are you waving high like Hitler? Huh? Twice. Yeah, it's happy rainbows and puppy dogs hour, man. It's rainbow and puppy dogs.
I mean, if we somehow survive this and get someone else in office in 2028, hopefully that wakes people up to the fact that we need to protect these institutions quite a bit more than we already do. But that's a legitimate question as to what could happen.
If it looks like I think it will look, and it looks like they're about to get wiped out in 2026, I don't think we're going to have another election in this country. I think he's got enough power to basically bribe any judge, any Supreme Court justice to shut down the election and say, when cooler hearts prevail, then we'll have an election. And only when white male landowners can vote, because that's what the Constitution wanted. That's it. Until they can figure out a way to make sure that they won't lose power, that we will not have another election again. And maybe we'll be like Russia, where we'll have military troops at our polling places, opening the ballot as we vote, telling us, asking us, who do we vote for? So, I did find one story that kind of gave me a smile because it reminded me of something that gave me joy, and that was Arrested Development. Do you remember Super Dave Osborne when he was on that show?
Refresh my memory. I'll probably will instantly.
He was the surrogate for George Michael, and he'd walk around with his camera and he'd talk like this.
Oh yeah,
because George Michael couldn't be in there, so he was surrogate that walked around. Hello. It was one of the better parts of that. Well, apparently that is a thing, and you and I talked about this before. The Twin Cities man has been sentenced for a second time for admitting to roaming 2 Minnesota casinos and playing slots for gamblers who paid to have their bets placed and then watch live on TikTok. This guy, Blake Fitzgerald, 41 of Farmington, pled guilty Monday to Goodhue County District Court to a gross misdemeanor charge of running a remote booking service at the Treasure Island Resort and Casino in Red Wing. Upon entering his plea, Fitzgerald was sentenced to 2 years of supervised probation and fined $488. Should he abide by the terms of the first 2 years, the conviction would be reduced as a misdemeanor. Is he actually going into court with the camera on? Are like people paying him to be in the courtroom experience?
That's how his lawyer would communicate with them too during trial. Objection.
His brother, Christopher Madison, 35, pled guilty early in Scott County for his role in a gambling enterprise. He was placed on supervised probation for a year, fined $250. Well, if these guys are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, these $488 and $250 in probation, I don't know if that's really the deterrent you think it is. He has no probation violations. The gross misdemeanor case will be dismissed. Similar charges against Madison and Goodhue County resulted in a sentence of a gross misdemeanor count and 2 years supervised probation. These guys have been doing this for a while. According to the state investigator of the brothers, the two arranged bets for 81 people in a 3-week period that totaled more than $48,000. Bettors received back about a third of their money, either in winnings or refunds, if the brothers ran out of time to get the wagers down. So, yeah, they're walking around with the Super Dave Osborne Arrested Development hat. Hello. I would like to put this on 16. I'm putting this on 16. That doesn't look suspicious at all, sir.
How would you pull that off? I guess you need like a hidden camera and a hat or something.
I don't think this guy's running around. I think he's like running around like he's a debutante on freaking Instagram. Oh my God, here we are at the thing. Oh, there you go. You want what? Okay, we'll do that. We'll do the double down. I think that's it, man. He's like an Instagram model. So speaking of Instagram models, Patrick Cooligan over at the Minnesota Reformer.
I'm sure you love that intro.
You need to tell him I said that. He and him, there's a lot of things that are going on. You guys had a lot to discuss, correct?
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, at least in terms of politics. We'll be chatting about Ken Martin, of course, becoming chair of the DNC and who might replace him in Minnesota. We'll also talk about fundraising numbers between the DFL and the GOP. And then we'll follow up on this story about this agricultural operation that we talked about last year.
Oh, yeah.
That was facing a lot of charges that had to do with wage theft, and treating their employees just horribly. Well, now the owner of this company is facing criminal charges after last year the company settled for a pretty small amount of money. So good to see that this guy's going to be held accountable.
Well, at least you're going to hopefully hold him accountable.
Yeah.
I will say this. I'm going to share something about that story after you guys are done, because there's an observation. The fact that Keith Ellison is bringing these charges tells us a lot about something else. And I'll get to that after you guys discuss it. It's Patrick Cooligan with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson joining you here on a Tuesday afternoon. And as usual on Tuesdays, we are joined by the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, Patrick Cooligan, as we're going to chat about some of the stories that they have been working on for the past week or so. As today we have a number of stories to talk about, including a follow-up on something we highlighted last year that has to do with Evergreen Acres. This was a company that was accused of basically stealing over $3 million in wages from hundreds of mostly undocumented immigrant workers. We have an update on that story. Plus, we'll be talking about Ken Martin being elected chair of the DNC. We'll also talk about a rather wacky Republican proposal that would have each county in Minnesota get only one state senator. Plus, we'll talk about fundraising numbers for both the DFL and the Republican Party of Minnesota. So lots to get to today. Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, let's start off before we get into the politics, following up on this story about Evergreen Acres, because Attorney General Keith Ellison has now filed criminal charges against Keith Schaefer in Stearns County District Court, as he's charged him with 1 count of felony racketeering and 4 counts of wage theft. Schaefer owns and operates a company called Evergreen Acres Dairy LLC. This is a company we talked about last year. Now, basically, Evergreen Acres and its businesses are accused of stealing over $3 million in wages from hundreds of what are mostly undocumented immigrant workers. Some of the workers detail really harsh conditions that they were forced to work in, including grueling hours, wage underpayments, unsafe living conditions, and threats from the dairy's owner. That would be Schaefer. Now, last year, Evergreen had settled with the Attorney General's office for $250,000, which many people thought seemed awfully low. But now we have this new development of Schaefer now facing criminal charges. So I guess my first question would be, how did these new charges stem, and what kind of penalties might Schaefer be facing right now? Because originally I thought this story was kind of done with that settlement last year, but it sounds like now this thing is most certainly not done, as Schaefer could be facing further penalties.
Right. Minnesota made wage theft a felony in 2019, but we really haven't seen anything in the way of anyone convicted. And so our reporter, Max Nestorak, has been on this Evergreen Dairy situation because it did seem like ripe for prosecution. And honestly, we were surprised this morning, and I would have to say, for me speaking personally here, pleasantly surprised. I wrote a column last year about the situation and sort of bemoaning the fact there seems to be 2 justice systems in this country, where if you steal a bottle of liquor from your local liquor store, you're going to be arrested and charged. But if you steal wages from somebody, too rarely are you ever going to be charged. And in this case, there's now 4 counts of felony wage theft and 1 count of felony racketeering. And we're talking about years in prison if he were to be convicted. And the charges are really they're brutal when you read them. In one instance, we have a 15-year-old who was in 2021. He worked 84 hours per week, as much as 84 hours per week, was paid $12 an hour, never got overtime pay, and he was charged $75 every 2 weeks for a small bed that he shared with his father in a small house with 10 other workers. And the place was infested with bed bugs and cockroaches. I mean, that was another part of this, is that he was the owner was allegedly selling them, renting them places to live that are just not habitable for humans. So this is quite a surprise. I have to say, with everything going on in Washington, it gives me just a little bit of hope and optimism here to see that the Attorney General is taking a crime of an alleged crime of exploitation of poor people and undocumented immigrants in particular very seriously. And we may see someone, if he's proven guilty, pay the consequences for something that is far too often goes without consequence.
I think we should point out, I believe these are criminal charges against Schaefer himself and not the company itself, Evergreen Acres. They're still able to operate right now, but I imagine operations could be changing quite significantly as Schaefer does end up getting convicted of these charges.
Right. These are charges against him. His daughter was also involved in running the company, and she was named in the civil suit, but not in these criminal charges.
So this will be interesting to see what happens because, as you said, it gives us at least a little bit of help, or a little bit of hope, I should say, that there is some justice in the country right now, being what's happening nationally. It does make you sometimes lose your faith. But here in Minnesota, yeah, good to see that Schaefer is not going to be getting away, not necessarily scot-free, but a little bit more than the slap on the wrist, so to speak, that he and his company kind of faced last year. So we'll have to follow along with what happens with those proceedings against Schaefer from the Attorney General's office. I want to move on now and talk about politics because we have some big news, at least here in Minnesota, as the former chair of the DFL, Ken Martin, has now been, well, he's now the former chair of the DFL. He has been elected the chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, so he'll be taking over Democrats nationally. And I'm interested what he's going to bring to the table because I know here in Minnesota, he was very focused on, well, expanding the DFL's reach, especially into the southern areas of Minnesota. In fact, he was even quoted as saying that Democrats can win in Minnesota without winning the Iron Range, and he largely proved correct, being that he's 25-0 in statewide races. He's also brought impressive fundraising numbers to the DFL party in Minnesota, but I'm curious, what assets do you think he brings to the table? Because I know some people might sit there and think, well, fundraising numbers have been great, but they don't always mean success for Democrats. So what are your thoughts on Martin being elected chair of the DNC?
I think he's a passionate competitor. I mean, he just loves to win. That was kind of the theme of Max's profile last week. He is 25-0 in statewide races as the chair. He lost a big race for governor in 2006. It's the last Democrat to lose. He managed the Mike Hatch's run against Palente's reelection, and he hasn't lost a statewide race since then. And I think he learned a lot of lessons out of that 06 race. So he's going to approach the job really, I think, as a party builder, somebody who's going to focus on research, a coordinated message, field organizing, and then you need the money to pay for all that. And those are the party building activities that I think are really needed right now on the Democratic side, where they're really adrift. And I think there's a lot of Democrats around the country, especially in fast growing but very red states, and Martin has honed in on these: Texas, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. These are the fast growing states that he wants to focus on, and they really need to help those state party organizations. He's been a state party chair for 15 years. He was also he founded a group of state party chairs and was president, and that actually became his base of support for his run for DNC chair. So I think he knows what it's like for the state parties and what it takes to turn one around and become a winner. I mean, I do think that there's big differences between a state like Minnesota, where, as we've discussed before, there are more Democrats than Republicans, and it's easy to go on a 25-0 run. Whereas in a place like Tennessee, it's a totally different task trying to end the Republican winning streak in those states. But I do think that he brings just a passion for winning, as opposed to any particular ideological drive. I think Democrats want the party to be principled, but I think at this point they also badly want to win.
And now turning our attention to the future of the DFL, who might replace Ken Martin as the chair of the DFL? Have any names been rumored so far?
So the governor, Tim Walz, has already endorsed Richard Carlbaum. That's his deputy chief of staff. I don't think that's the end of it, though. I think there's a couple other names, Ron Harris, and then also Alana Peterson, a longtime, really steady DFL operative who's worked for Tina Smith, Al Franken, as well as the Senate DFL. She was instrumental in helping the DFL win the trifecta in 22. So I'm not sure that this thing is over, even though the governor has weighed in. And I also think Ken Martin is going to have a role. I think he's close to Harris, and I think he's long been concerned. And the reason that he stayed in the job for so long is because he was concerned about what would happen after he left. And I think it would be kind of the final, his final act as chair might be to engineer his successor, maybe. I don't know. I haven't talked to him. In fact, the last time I talked to him, he was very upset about something I wrote. So I'm not sure how many more times I'm going to talk to Ken, but he's got my number.
Well, it means he must be doing something right. Oftentimes, if you have the politicians mad at you, sometimes when you write something that they don't like. Hey, want to talk about, as we're going through and discussing the DFL and their future right now. You guys wrote about some interesting fundraising numbers that were just released for both the political parties here in Minnesota. Specifically, the DFL raised a very staggering $11 million in 2024 and went into the new year with roughly $2.3 million in cash on hand. Meanwhile, the Republicans raised $440,000 in 2024 for its state campaigns and entered the new year with about $70,000 on hand. In fact, just to show the disparity, Governor Walz out-fundraised the entire Republican Party of Minnesota. He brought in $1 million and has roughly that much cash on hand. Now, you would normally think, well, wow, one party is significantly outraising the others. That means they must be absolutely wiping the floor with them when it comes to elections. But as you wrote, we're still largely a 50-50 state when it comes to at least the state legislature right now, obviously, as we well know, the state house is currently divided 67-67, while the Senate has just a one-seat DFL majority. So I found these numbers very interesting, because even though the DFL has that staggering cash advantage and fundraising advantage, it didn't really help them that much in the 2024 election cycle, it seems.
Right. And I think if you're a Democrat, you have to be asking, when are we going to have an autopsy and determine exactly what went wrong here? Democrats I talked to, high-level Democrats, they blame the national atmosphere, and that certainly needs to be taken into account. Kamala Harris was only a candidate for 100 days. Joe Biden, I think, really had lost the trust of the country. We had really high inflation. There was a crime spike. All of that made it tough to run as a Democrat in 24. But here in Minnesota, I think what's really problematic is that the House Democrats in some key races ran behind Harris. And again, with that huge cash advantage. So what exactly did they do wrong? Could they have done something else with all that extra money they had during the 23-24 legislative session, and put more money in the pockets of voters? And or did they just not get the message out properly about everything they had done in 23-24, or was it some combination of the two? Unfortunately, I just don't know that there's enough conversation about that right now. And so I'm going to stir the pot a little this week, I think, with a column. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I suppose if you're a Democrat, you could make the argument that, hey, we still were able to largely hold things in the House despite not having a very favorable national environment. But you brought up the good point that there are some candidates who did end up running behind Kamala Harris's campaign. So, yeah, they very well might need to have an autopsy, not just at the national level, but perhaps even the state level as well. Final thing I wanted to talk with you about has to do something with a Republican state senator named Eric Lucero, who comes from the city of St. Michael, as he proposed an interesting idea that is, well, very unconstitutional. He is proposing an idea where basically every county in Minnesota would get only one state senator. That would mean we would have 87 state senators rather than 67 members. Now, as I mentioned, this is unconstitutional, as it's already been ruled by federal courts that these legislative districts need to have equal populations. But I'm curious what his logic was behind this, because I actually ran some numbers on these, and Lucero comes from St. Michael, as I mentioned, which is in Wright County. That happens to be the 10th biggest county in Minnesota. So I would think that would actually hurt his constituents because they would be getting less representation. So what exactly was his logic behind proposing this?
Well, I'm not going to pretend to get inside Lucero's head, but what I do know is that Republicans win more counties than Democrats. Democrats win the counties where all the people live. And so if you had 87 senators, one for each county, you'd wind up with, at least probably 70 Republican senators, at least a veto-proof majority. As you said, it's been ruled unconstitutional, but that was back in 1964 when the Warren Court, in fact, it was Chief Justice Earl Warren, wrote that legislators represent people, not trees or acres. Legislators are elected by voters, not farms or cities or economic interests. It's inconceivable that a state law to the effect that in counting votes for legislators, the votes of citizens in one part of the state would be multiplied by 2, 5, or 10, while the votes of persons in another area would be counted only at face value, could be constitutionally sustainable. So ruled unconstitutional, but I think as we've seen with this current court, you just never know, because the entire conservative legal edifice is built on a reaction to the Warren Court. And that's really where it begins. And so, who knows? This is not going to become law anytime soon, but I think it gets you, it helps us understand the degree, the mechanics that someone like Lucero wants to use to lock in a Republican majority here when they can't get it in the normal fashion.
Yeah, and as you said, very little chance, if any, of this ever becoming law in Minnesota. But I would be curious if maybe other states might look at doing something like this, where obviously it would face a court challenge and potentially work its way to the Supreme Court, where with the likes of Alito and Thomas, who knows what would happen there. But that's at least what's happening in Minnesota. And thankfully, as I mentioned, very little chance of this ever coming to fruition, at least in our state. Well, you have been speaking with Patrick Houlihan, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. Again, make sure you go to minnesotareformer.com for the latest in news and politics here in Minnesota. Patrick, as always, thanks for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure, Brett.
All right, we'll take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
Located just north of 50th in France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, they offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Hi, this is Frank Brown with Minuteman Press Uptown. It's election season. If you're campaigning for a candidate, your outreach needs top quality union printed materials, from direct mail and yard signs to door hangers, buttons, t-shirts, and flyers. Minuteman Uptown is your union shop to get people to the polls. We print everything. We'll keep your candidate top of mind, target your message with a laser focus, and maximize your voter turnout efforts. Get started today at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Winter reading, losing yourself under a blanket with the fireplace blazing away while submerging yourself in a book and trying to finish just one more page? Winter nights are the perfect time to read, and that's where Next Chapter Booksellers can help. They're independently owned and have all the bestsellers and new releases. Not sure what to get? Their friendly booksellers are great at recommendations. That's your winter reading headquarters. Next Chapter Booksellers off Snelling and Grand. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Spring and summer is the right time to install your fireplace. Find your perfect fireplace and have it installed and ready before the cold weather hits again. If you already have a wood fireplace, consider a fireplace insert or check out the entire selection at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces on East Franklin and Riverside in Minneapolis. It will transform your inefficient fireplace into a reliable, environmentally smart heating system.
This is Peter Solak, owner of Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Have you ever watched your dog or cat curl up in front of a fire? It's primordial, the way it touches both the animal and the human. We know that fire reaches deep into the heart and soul. Let us show you how. We have over 35 working units on display here in Minneapolis. We are located at the east end of Riverside Avenue at 2901 East Franklin. From I-94, take the Riverside Avenue exit. Find us also online at woodlandstoves.com. Let us help you make a fireplace part of your life.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Experience a brand new musical bursting with imagination and surprises. In Milo Imagines the World, a wildly creative young boy spends his time on a crowded train car, imagining the lives of the passengers around him, and sees his dreams come to vivid life in the form of vibrant songs and energetic dance numbers, with tunes ranging from pop to hip-hop to country. You won't want to miss this stunning new production that the Chicago Reader called an absolute delight. Milo Imagines the World is on stage at Children's Theater Company beginning February 4th. Get your tickets today at childrenstheater.org.
You may not think of it, but winter is a great time to take care of those exterior home projects. This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction. Most people wait until the warmer months for their exterior home projects, but labor costs are actually lowest in the winter. And that's true for the contractor I trust, Snap Construction. Arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation contractor in the metro. Are you noticing ice dams on your house? Or is your furnace constantly running and you're still not comfortable? In addition to your exterior home projects, winter is also a great time to get your insulation checked with a free energy audit from Snap Construction. The average cost to upgrade your insulation is oftentimes less than a new furnace. Plus, there are rebates available from your energy provider when you upgrade your insulation. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. So don't wait for prices to rise in the warmer months. Get a free estimate now by calling 612-333-SNAP, 612-333-SNAP, or go to snapconstruction.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526. Or autotech.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy tonight with a low of 9. Then Wednesday, snow expected with a high 27.
For more than 40 years, the Great Wall Restaurant has been serving up Szechuan and Mandarin favorites. The Great Wall is located just north of 50th in France on the Minneapolis-Edina City line. Check them out at greatwallrestaurant.us.
If I were a human being.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. I will say one thing about the Cooligan thing that just, before I get into something, I got a personal note here in a second. But one thing about that, I think it should not be ignored the fact that the county attorneys in that area seem to have refused. I got the impression from Keith Ellison that he was waiting for the county attorneys to file charges. And it seems as if they decided not to, which should, the fact that what he's describing if you read any of the stories about this lawsuit against Evergreen, it tells you a lot if the county attorneys did not want to file charges. So that's just an observation there. So Patrick, I have in a hope to find some positivity, I'm going to share some personal news from the family. My youngest child has made her decision on which college to go to.
And our drum roll, please.
Wisconsin. Oh, God. Oh, God. It hurts. It hurts so much. Oh, God. Just when it was having such a good day. No, first of all, I'll say this. Okay, jokes aside. Now, yes, when Wisconsin and Minnesota play, I'm rooting for the Golden Gophers. That's just that. Wisconsin and Madison is an amazing town. If you've never spent any time in Madison, Madison is an absolutely amazing town, a very cool town. The university is, although the Republicans in the state tried to kill it, it is a pretty good university. And so, yeah, I'm pretty, I'm very happy. I'm very proud of my daughter. I'm very glad she's going to go down there. She's going to be in kind of one of the more advanced colleges. And yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. So, but the Badgers, man. And just, she bought her first Badger shirt. Can I just say, ow. I asked my children, my son who graduated from the University of Minnesota and my daughter who's about to go to the University of Wisconsin, if I got one of those half and half jerseys, and they both have forbidden me from doing that. I don't quite know what to do. I will say, you know what? This gives me a lot of opportunity. You've driven down to Madison before, right?
Yes, I've actually lived in Madison for a few months.
The Hickston Travel Plaza. Have you ever stopped at the Hickston Travel Plaza?
I have not.
Stop at the Hickston Travel Plaza. It's good food, man. I've actually had some pretty good meals at the Hickston Travel Plaza. There you are. It's right there off the highway. They got the big fish. I think it's a big fish.
I think I've thought about stopping there.
It's worth it. It's not bad, man. And I can tell you what, I'm going to be stopping there a lot on the way in the next 4 years. I can already see that coming. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I will say, I'm kind of glad. It was John Renan, the writer for the Star Tribune, that was covering the debacle in Hilltop forever. That I thought that now he retired and he's out in North Carolina and he and I are friends and he seems to be a happy little camper out there doing what he wants to do. And I'm glad to see him out there having a good time. I'm glad to see him retire, enjoying his retirement. That I was wondering if there had been any updates, and apparently there has. So there is this family that lives out there. They moved out there to this community, and you'd think to yourself, a community would be happy to have a family move out there. They have been losing their tax base. A family comes out there, they want to be there. And there's in this fight over what's called Hornet Street, which is the street where their house is. The question at hand, tied up in court battles and governmental disputes for years, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees for all sides, is whether there's a difference between the first quarter mile of Hornet Street and the second quarter mile. In 2021, township supervisors essentially declared the north end of the road did not exist, citing a law about townships not maintaining abandoned roads. Now, this has gone back and forth. And what had happened is that, they basically told the family, you have to build a driveway if we're going to access. So they build it to the nearest road. Well, apparently a guy that owns part of that land is an absolute jerk and rallied the city council or township or whatever it is to fight this and say, no, we're not going to maintain this. And it has been amazing because, once again, I'm 100% on the side of the homeowner here. This town is just the biggest bunch of jackasses I have ever seen. And without a doubt, and I've said this over and over again when Rena was covering this story, I said, without a doubt in my mind, they would force this family out, and less than a year later would be sitting there saying, why aren't anybody moving into our town? Why aren't people moving here? Because you're a bunch of jackasses. That's why. You're a bunch of... This is the amount of money you have spent to not have to try to do anything with this road is basically far more than it would have cost to maintain this road for the next 30 years. But because you're all a bunch of idiots, here you are. Anyway, so that's the deal. They built the road out there, and yeah. The county judge called the action. Now, once again, so this has been going on for a while. And I think this county judge update was the last time we had an update on this. A county judge called the action unreasonable and absurd, and township electors voted to end the appeal of the decision. So the county judge came on out and said, no, the road does exist, that you're being unreasonable and absurd, and township electors voted to end the appeal. But the township supervisors refused to drop their appeal. They're jackasses, calling the vote improper. So basically, a judge looks at him and says, for God's sake, just maintain the road. The voters tell him to maintain the road. Yeah. An appellate judge agreed with the township, though, saying it had no duty to maintain the road. As a compromise, the township extended a different road to the Christmas property line. The Christmans, who note the township still maintains 6 stretches of road where no one lives, refused to build a second driveway to that road, calling it unfair cronyism by the township. So basically, the city already maintains roads that have been abandoned, 6 of them to be exact. And so them saying we don't do this is a lie. They basically, for some reason, and once again, it's 100% the landowner there. He's been able to convince the rest of the people to basically be jerks too, and I don't know. It's both a simple story and a very maddening one. The district court hearing this week will determine whether the road is under township jurisdiction or is a private property. After mediation in December, the county agreed to force the township to maintain the road if the judge deemed it a road. The judge has 90 days to issue a summary judgment. Both sides have dug in deep, finding decades-old records from the Kennebec History Center, getting affidavits from workers who plowed snow there in the 1980s. Both sides portray themselves as victims of harassment or bullying and accuse the other side of lies and intimidation. Taking away the road we rely on every day isn't something the township was forced by law to do, said Renee Chrisman, who lives at Hornet Street. I want to repeat that because that's exactly true. Taking away a road we rely on every day wasn't something the township was forced by law to do. They chose to do that. And like I said, I guarantee you these clown cars are going to sit out there and say, why doesn't anybody want to move to our town? Because you're douches, man. You're just bad people and no one likes you. Even your voters voted against you doing this. And here you are, man. And like I said, you have spent probably far more money trying to stop this road from being recognized than it would have cost to maintain that road for probably 20 or 30 years. You guys are blind to your own stupidity at this point. Here comes Mr. Schmall, 60, and you can already see the cantankerous. The last 120 years, it's never been a problem until the Christmans created the problem. He is now raised on the now empty house on the part of Hornet Street closest to the county road. He now lives a mile away with his mother and owns land on each side of Hornet Street. They think they're smarter than everybody else, and they should get whatever they want. If anything just tells you, okay, yeah, just from what you said, I'm on the side of the Christmas. It's this. Because, my God, I've lived in small towns, and that is a guy I've run into. You're painting the house. How dare you paint the house a color I don't approve? You're wearing clothes I don't think you should be wearing. You bringing in your newfangled mentality here. You don't know anything. This is about rural resentment. That's all this is. And like I said, I've gotten an eyeful and earful over my entire career. I have worked many times in small towns, and I have been out there. And these towns are, and what this really is they're angry. They're angry that their quality of life has diminished so much. By the way, you probably should stop voting Republican. I'm just saying, because ever since you've been voting Republican, things have gone pew, right down the hole. But, heaven forbid reality infect your mind. But you guys, you're angry because the town is 50 and older or 18 and younger. And no one wants to move out there, and everyone leaves and they don't come back, and you're angry. And so you sit there and you say, well, we want people to come here. But then you want people to come there and do the way that you want them to do. I'll give a great example. I lived in a small town. A company was going to come in and create 50 jobs in that town. Small town. That was a huge deal. And then all of a sudden they found out what they were going to pay those people. And they said, wait a second here. You can't pay those people that wage. You're paying them more than I'm paying them. And so they put a pressure campaign on that guy to not pay them. And he said, no, this is just our corporate policy. This is the payment they're going to get. And they said, well, we'd rather you not come into our town as opposed to pay these people a better wage than we're willing to pay. And so they didn't. And I remember when they were saying they were down at the local grocery store having coffee in the morning, and they're talking about, it's a shame that fell through. And I looked at them and said, well, you guys told them that not to come in here. Well, we didn't tell them not to. It's just they were going to pay exorbitant rates and we couldn't keep up. I said, but you guys said that was a deal breaker. This was on you. And they don't want to ever look in the mirror and say, oh, well, I guess it is on me. They think they're smarter than everybody else. Well, they seem to be smarter than you, sir. I mean, I'm going to be the case. And especially if it was plowed in the 1980s, that means it was maintained. If there are 6 other roads that haven't been maintained, dude, you guys just seem to be in a power struggle. The Christmans are not your enemy, yet they have become the face of the villainy that you guys are fighting. What you really need to do, all of you guys, the town elders there, that are there, the township supervisors, the guy that owns this road, you need to look in the mirror and say, why am I really angry here? Is it really a quarter mile of road where somebody who wants to live in the community needs to get it plowed? Or is it something else? Because I can tell you right now, I know you're going to insist it's only that, but if it is only that, and you've spent all this time and money, you are the saddest people I've ever seen in my entire freaking life, man. Sad. So you need to look in the mirror, find out what's really bugging you, and go address that and probably say, hey, sorry, I'm glad you guys are here. We'll find out. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Take a break, come back. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. I love the Toyota Sienna Hybrid from Rudy Luther Toyota. Safe, roomy, comfortable, and insanely fuel efficient. One thing I haven't mentioned is how good the Sienna is at winter driving. We just had a snowstorm, and my Sienna handled the ice and snow no problem. From getting through the plow pile at the end of the driveway to safely navigating the snow-covered highways, the Sienna is designed to give you a comfortable, safe drive. When winter weather hits, I give myself extra time, but with Sienna's handling and heated seats, extra time is great. Test drive a Sienna today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Bough.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Crooner's Supper Club offers a classic nightlife experience with 4-star food, drinks, and entertainment. Enjoy local, national, and international artists in the main stage, Dunsmore Jazz Room, or outdoors at the Belvedere Under the Stars. Or relax at Maggie's Lounge. Find your perfect concert experience at croonersmn.com. Crooner's Supper Club, where old school charm meets modern nightlife. Cafe Latte combines a cafe dining experience with gourmet quality food. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
Is your remote workforce putting your company at risk? Cyber criminals are targeting your employees with COVID-19 inspired emails and attacking businesses like yours. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. Rymark has the tools and expertise to enable your employees to work securely from home. If you need help getting your staff to work remotely and securely, call 651-328-8900 or go to rymarkit.com. That's 651-328-8900 or rymarkit.com.
Do you have a loved one who is not receiving the care that they deserve at their current memory care facility? I'm Aiden Helene, Director of Community Relations here at the Welshire, and I meet with families every single day who are struggling with poor staffing, missed medications, poor personal cares, and an absence of engagement from consistent activities. 85% of our residents at the Welshire are coming from other memory care facilities that could not meet their care needs. Not all memory care is created equally. And if this is something your family is experiencing, I encourage you to come visit our community of well-being and see the Welshire difference, where we promise that your loved one will live with pride and dignity. The Welshire has 24/7 nursing, a robust activities team that provides activities 7 days a week. And when the diagnosis takes a 9-to-5 approach, so will we. Book a tour at welshiremn.com and see our community of well-being in action. That's welshiremn.com. Again, that's welshiremn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Yeah, Brianna had the story on Tim Walz over the Strip, sitting on more than $1 million in campaign funds if he chooses a third term as governor. Governor Walz, please do run again. I think you've been a heck of a governor, and you're a heck of a leader. And the state. I'm going to call this right now. I don't think 2026 is going to be a good year for Republicans. I do not think it's going to be a good year for Republicans, and especially if they run like Royce White against you or against Tina Smith, which he says he wants to do, and their party is stupid enough to put the guy out there. Well, then you'll easily win. But what else? The Star Tribune finally picked up the story about the Republicans who do not have a lot of money on hand, like $70,000, trying to do a recall of all 60 plus House members for the Democrats. And basically the process, and as we talked about on the show, I mean, it's not as, you get a bunch of signatures and then there's an election. You got to get the signatures, then you got to go to the Supreme Court and have them rule on it. Then it goes to a different judge for him to evaluate it. And then you have 90 days to get enough signatures to do it. And, they're not going to have the manpower. This is just a threat. But what I will say is this, Democrats, this isn't a threat from you. Every Republican that ran in the metro area said they campaigned on working with the other side. And they so far all they've done is threaten and threaten and threaten. You don't have to do a recall election against all 60 Republicans, although you could. You don't have to do a recall election. Pick 10 Republicans in the metro area, 10 of them. Have you seen what Trump has done? The Republican brand has taken a little bit of a hit. And they're going to be, trust me, if you picked 10 Republicans in the metro area and said, we're going to recall you, they'll lose 8 of those seats. They will lose 8 of those seats. If that recall election happens this year, they will lose 88 of those seats. And they will not, as much as they'll try to push for a recall election for these other people, they will not pick up 8 seats. In my mind, this is a stupid bluff by them because it's far more likely they're going to lose recall elections than you will. Now, this requires the Democrats, the DFL, to get a little bit of a spine and say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And because trust me, if the recall elections get approved, they're not going to be able to recall and win 8 elections. You could. In the metro area, especially with the Republican brand in the toilet, you definitely could. And so frantically, if the recall elections got approved and all of a sudden the Republicans are like, well, yeah, wait a second here, they could recall us, they will frantically say, okay, we'll go back to a power sharing agreement. We'll recognize Tab Key's seat down in Shakopee. We'll basically give you some of the committees. We'll do this because they know that if they get 10 of their seats recalled in the metro area, they're going to lose a bunch of them. So what's good for the goose, man? You guys should not be sitting there. 10. Pick 10 metro area Republicans and recall them. And I guarantee you the Republicans will have a come to Jesus moment, although they probably want to arrest Jesus and deport him. But still, they would. They're so Christian, aren't they? Native Roots Radio is up next. Have a good one. We're back tomorrow. Until then, see ya.
Winter